guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is our last class together, and it's going to kind of be like a review, and I'm going to be jumping around a little bit just so we can make sure I touch everything, because I know you guys are going to have to be working on a business plan. And hopefully you've been doing some interviews, and I'm going to ask if you've done some interviews. I'm hoping that you can give us a little bit of a presentation about your lessons learned. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the chat a chart, and the chart's going to look like this. The first column, it will have like the customer role and customer segment. And remember, we talked about that. We talked about the customer roles in terms of the decision maker, the influencer, the end user, and then the particular customer segment. And remember, I give the example of, don't just say, if it's a hospital, don't just say hospital. You know, is it a research hospital? Is it a teaching hospital? Is it a rural hospital? Is it a small hospital? Is it private? Is it public? So that you're really able to come up with a particular customer role, meaning a title of your customer, and the particular customer segment. Here, when I talk about hypotheses, we talked about that part of this process is you having a guess about who your customer is, what problems they have, what your value proposition is. And so you want to test that hypothesis. And we talked about testing one thing at a time. So you may have a hypothesis that your solution saves maybe 10% of the labor costs, or your solution speeds up a process by 15%. That would be a hypothesis that you would test during your interview. So when I have here experiments, how are you going to test that? It's going to be during the interview. So here you put a sample of what type of question you'd want to ask. Here is the result of that interview. Were you able to validate or invalidate your hypotheses? And then based on this, what actions are next? Who are you going to interview next? What questions are you going to ask next? So I'm going to give us some time. I'm going to put this chart in the chat, and I'm going to give you guys some time to fill it out. Now, if you've done interviews, what I want you to do is get out your notes and try to populate this chart. If you have not done interviews yet, I want you to think about, what are your hypotheses about your customer? What are your hypotheses about your value proposition? And what questions could you ask? And then what we're going to do, we're going to share around this document. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, because I'm going to go to the chat and see if I can get this document for you guys. Okay, so this is the hypothesis template. That should have two PowerPoint slides there. One is the lessons learned, and one is the business model canvas. Right now, we're going to work on the lessons learned. And what I want you to do is get out your interview notes and fill out this chart. And I'm going to give you 10 minutes, but I'm going to check in with you to see where you are, because you might be done in 5 minutes. And then I'm going to ask you to share, and we're going to work through it. So I'm setting my timer now. And if you haven't done any interviews, you can fill this just with your hypothesis and with the questions that you're wanting to ask.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, great. So Anne, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. And Kristen is on my team, so if I missed anything, Kristen can help me out.
Okay, so what I want you to do is share your screen. Can you do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, the text is a little everywhere, but so beginning with our customer role and segment, for this exercise, I'm focusing on one particular segment, and these are post-high school adults, and they may include college students, military or working professionals who want to improve their language through a user-friendly and aesthetically pleasing and highly interactive online application. And these customers may have formal or independent foreign language experiences, or it may be even currently taking language lessons at the college levels. And we formulated 4 hypotheses to be invalidated or validated. And the first one is that a lack of good language practice opportunities may lead to unacceptably low or slow success and student frustration in college level classes. And the questions we asked as our experiment were to kind of solicit what kind of class activities that the individuals did to improve their learning process, and whether there are any outside of class activities, such as those assigned as homework, and how effective they thought these activities were.
And I'm going to stop you
Yes.
because I want to compliment you on something. I like when you're trying to get them to tell you a story. Tell me about the kinds of activities you did in class. That is a really good way to get them to start talking and then to be able to follow up with questions. And this is again why, which I want to say to our participants here, a survey is not great, right? Because here you can listen to the story and then follow up. But so go on.
Yes, kudos to my team members who helped formulate these questions. So,
okay.
Yes, and the last question for this hypothesis is, what motivates you the most and what kind of frustration you face while you were learning from a classroom environment or through homework assignment. And the result, we were able to validate this hypothesis because individuals revealed that they were, like I mentioned yesterday, they felt stuck. They learned there's excitement in the beginning, but soon when they reach like an intermediate level, they feel stuck and unable to reach a level beyond doing simple tasks. And I didn't have a chance to fill out this, fill out this column. Our actions would be to make language learning a little bit more engaging and interactive. So we have interactive activities, and to help them, we focus on 3 aspects. So there's basic skills, so which is what they already kind of do. But beyond that, we also have communicative and literacy skills, which kind of echoed some of their responses for the other questions.
So let me ask you this, because I know it's a lot of text on the screen, and this is great because after today's workshop, you can flesh it out more. What surprised you most when you were interviewing? What did you learn that you didn't already know? So just think about this. Before you went to the interview, what was it that you wanted to learn? And what did you learn that you didn't know?
Right. So before the interview, I actually, what surprised me the most, I start with that. I wasn't expecting many individuals would give me so many ways that they find resources that I didn't think of. So that was very interesting. For example, one individual, she looked at online website and tried to go shopping using Japanese website because she's trying to learn Japanese. So I was like, oh, that's really useful because she's engaged in a real world activity that's directly relevant to her. So I thought that was really interesting. Okay. And sorry, what's the other question?
Let me ask them. So let me get Kristen to pipe in too. So during these interviews, what surprised you most? What were you surprised about?
One of the things that I was surprised about, and I was just reviewing what our interviewee said, is they actually try other apps they try some apps to look for which ones are interactive. And then, so that was, for me, was surprising. They do go out and look for apps that are interactive where they can actually talk to somebody. But one of the challenges that I found surprising and really interesting was that they have a hard time figuring out or finding somebody who is at a similar level to them, like somebody who's not too advanced to speak to, or somebody who's not like way below their level, so that, you know, I guess one of the struggles is finding somebody who is on a similar level with. So that's what I found surprising.
And so so both of you guys getting an understanding of their pains, how do you should help you come up with a value proposition? So has that helped you? So what you just said about level, can you resolve that for them?
Yeah, so I think what we could do in our app is give like suggested pairings. So like if you're in an interactive space in the app, we can have like a suggestion sidebar where they show like, we recommend these interlocutors for you who are of a similar level.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, that's great. That's great. Thank you. I know I put you on the spot, but thank you so much for sharing that. Quang, I know you were ready before anyone else. So do you want to share your screen?
Yes. Can you see my screen now?
I can see it.
Yeah. So yeah, my startup is about the healthy fast food, and my customer are the college students. And the hypothesis that I have is that college students want to buy healthy fast food. So I have 4 questions for experiment. How often do you buy fast food? Why do you buy fast food? Why don't you buy fast food more frequently? And what will make you buy fast food more frequently? And the answer from those students, I interviewed 5 students that I met in the campus. Some of them are American, some of them are foreigner who came to US to study. And they answer that, yeah, all of them, they answer that once or twice a week. And the reason that they buy fast food because fast food are cheap, fast, and available at late night. And the reason that they do not buy fast food more frequently is because they think that fast food is unhealthy. And they said that they would buy fast food more frequently if fast food is healthier.
So let me ask you something, Quang. Let me ask you something. Did you find anything that surprised you during these interviews?
Yeah, what surprised me is the note that a student said that he eats instant noodle as fast food frequently. So yeah, that's what I did not think about, that instant noodle. Some people they eat instant noodle as a fast food. Yeah, usually I think that McDonald's or KFC are my competitors, but that student give me an insight that some people they buy instant noodle a pack and they eat that at home. So maybe they are the potential customer.
Okay, okay. And how many, so college students, remember I was talking about really being able to provide detail about your customer. So it's not like all college students, right? So how would you describe your customer?
Yeah, I describe my customer as young, low income, busy, in the age between 18 and 25, and who buy fast food once or twice a week.
Okay, okay. All right, Quang, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to share before we go on? Okay, I'm gonna share my screen again here. So one of the things that I want to talk about, and we've talked about this a lot, but it's the customer. And sometimes founders, they have a solution, they come up with a hypothesis about who the customer is, and they start doing interviews, just like you guys have started doing interviews. And it turns out that the customer doesn't really care about the problem that their solution addresses. So if that happens to you as you're doing these interviews, don't think of that as a failure. This is really a good learning because it means that you may need to look at another customer segment. And I want to encourage you to keep brainstorming about the customer. And I want to give you an example. So I worked, and I may have talked to you about this earlier, but I want to flesh it out a little bit for you. I worked with this team as part of the National Science Foundation process, and they had a stroke diagnostic kit. And they thought, okay, hospitals are going to want this kit. And they started going out and interviewing emergency room doctors. And they didn't want it. They didn't need it. They didn't have the problem of being able to diagnose strokes. And so this team was really devastated because they had spent a lot of time coming up with the prototype for this kit. And I said, well, okay, well, they thought that an ER doctor at a hospital, that was their customer. And I said, well, okay, what kind of hospital? Remember, I'm always asking these questions. Is it a public hospital? Is it a private hospital? Is it a teaching hospital? Where is it located? And so they were focusing on big, large teaching research hospitals. Those people, those customers didn't care about their product. And so they decided to pivot on their customer. They went to rural hospitals, and they found out that rural hospitals actually did have a problem, because the problems with a stroke person is they need to be diagnosed very quickly. And the rural hospital did not have the equipment to do that. So, hey, the team was excited because they found problem solution fit. But then there was another problem. Rural hospitals didn't have the budget to hire people to run this equipment. So although they found problem solution fit, which is what we talked about, it's important to find desire, it wasn't feasible because the rural hospitals didn't have the money to hire staff to run the diagnostics. So then here they are again, feeling completely devastated. We don't have a customer, but they kept pushing, and they found these companies. They were like telemedicine companies, and they partnered with rural hospitals to do different types of treatments and diagnostics. So that type of company became their customer. I'm telling you all of this because once you start interviewing, you initially have a hypothesis about who your customer is. And one thing that we talked about is your solution being a must-have for that customer. But that might not be the case. They might not really care about the problem that your solution addresses. So then you have to pivot with respect to the customer. So we talked about customer segments, customer roles, customer workflows, and all of this was trying to get you to figure out who's the customer and where you fit. But sometimes it's really difficult to do that. And I'm going to talk about customer ecosystem and how that may help you figure out if you need to pivot with respect to your customer and where you might fit. In order to help you and give you an example of an ecosystem, I'm going to take you back to a high school biology class. And I want you to think about ecosystems, which are like complex environments made up of many interdependent and interconnected parts. In this illustration here shows an ecosystem along a riverbank with the sun, trees, plants, water, birds, and so on. And each of these parts has its own special role. For example, the trees provide shade, shelter, and produce oxygen. The water serves as a home for aquatic creatures, hydrates many animals, and nourishes plants. The termites break down old logs, and on and on and on. These roles are not only necessary for the survival of that part, the role each part plays makes an essential contribution to the health and functioning of the whole system. These parts depend on and are dependent on one another to thrive. I like this definition because it talks about community interacting as a system through nutrient cycles and energy flows. The word community, meaning in relation, not just a collection. Interacting as a system means alive, changing, moving, not static. System implies formal connectedness, again, related versus unrelated actors. Through nutrient cycles and energy flows, gives you a sense of inputs and conversions. So when thinking, I want you to, this is kind of an analogy. And so you think about, okay, what is an industry ecosystem? So keeping that biological system in mind, let's get back to the business world. So let's take the car industry, for example. This industry is complex because it's part of a large ecosystem. And the first thing that comes to mind may be the manufacturer, the dealer, the consumer, but these are just the first segments. They aren't the only ones. If you take a step outward, you begin to consider industry segments that maintain vehicles, produce energy, provide insurance, rent or scrap vehicles, and provide transportation. An industry ecosystem is the network of organizations, including suppliers, distributors, customers, competitors, government agencies, and so on, involved in the delivery of a specific product or service through both competition and cooperation. So similar to the biological ecosystem, the idea is that each entity in the ecosystem affects and is affected by the others, creating a constantly evolving relationship in which each entity must be flexible and adaptable in order to survive. So this is a really messy robotics ecosystem, and it includes banks, law, and standards, because it's important to include all the stakeholders. Here, this is a simple ecosystem. And you might remember the very first time that we talked back in February, I talked about this founder. She had a health supplement, and she was thinking that it could be used by bodybuilders in smoothies, or by restaurants as a sugar replacement, or it could even be used with moms and their kids. And she ended up choosing as her customer moms with small children. And so she tried to come up with a simple diagram of an ecosystem. And there's a lot missing here, but we did an in-class workshop, just like I'm doing with you guys. But what's missing is packaging, transportation, and it just needs to be fleshed out. So ecosystems create strong barriers to entry for new competition, because the ecosystem already consists of the players that allow it to function. So if you're a potential entrant, you not only have to duplicate or better the core product, but you have to figure out how to compete against the entire system of independent complementing businesses and suppliers that form the network. You have to come up with a way to join an existing ecosystem by providing an advantage, a value proposition that is currently lacking from that system. So when you look at it, you think about, okay, your product, your service, your solution, how does it fit in that big ecosystem? Who are the suppliers, the distributors, the customers, the competitors, the government agencies? And you need to determine the relationship between them. Understand the jobs to be done for each. Where do you fit? What are their responsibilities? What are the boundaries? How do you figure all this out? Again, it's interviewing. You need to talk to potential customers, get an understanding of what the supply chains are that are in place today. Who are the competitors? Are there any government standards? If your customer is another business, who are their customers? So what I want to do now, and like I said, today, this is our last time together, so we're going to be doing a lot of back and forth. I want you to think about your product, your service. I want you to think about who the competitors are. Who are your suppliers? Are there any key organizations or influencers? Who are the stakeholders? And when you think about your business model canvas, how does this ecosystem affect that? So I'm going to leave this up here. I'm going to give you like 5 minutes to think about your industry and the ecosystem in your industry. Sometimes this makes founders think about who the customer really is. And sometimes they pivot based on doing interviews and finding out, as I said, that the customer really doesn't have a problem that the solution addresses, and they have to pivot to another customer. But you may pivot to a customer that's already in the ecosystem. So think about that. And so I'm putting my timer on for 5 minutes, and I'll check in with you guys to see if you need more time. Okay, that's my timer. I'm gonna stop sharing. And then I'm gonna ask some people who haven't shared yet. Nui, I think I saw something in the chat. You said they really don't care. Tell us a little bit about that.
So we have a cleaning product, and it's non-toxic.
Mhm.
And it's like I've been using it to clean all over the house without any gloves and whatnot. So anyways, the point of not caring is when I interviewed people about cleaning, like, you know, cleaning is obviously it's kind of more of you feel good after, right? People clean to feel better after, like they feel good when they're done. And when they use Clorox and all that, like people use goggles and all this, and like they know it's, you know, potentially going to burn their skin, burn their eyes, burn their throats, but they're going to feel clean later. So they really don't care. And, you know, a possibility of a non-toxic cleaning, they're like, okay, like I'll try, but my Clorox makes me feel good. Like, you know, my Clorox makes me feel good. So they don't really care about other possibility. Like they'll try, but they're just like, they don't care, you know, so.
Okay, so remember what I said about customer segment. I said, who is your customer? So who is your customer?
Anybody that cleans.
Okay, are you kidding me? Really? Are you guys?
So listen,
help
like,
him out. Okay, wait a minute.
at the last minute. Like we pivoted our thing at the
Wait,
last minute. So I'm sorry, like
wait a minute, Nui. Wait a minute. Anybody who cleans. Yeah, and I want you to help him out with that. And then I'm gonna ask Quang too. Who should be his customer segment?
Yes, yeah, interesting idea, Nui. I think the problem is that, for example, I myself, I also clean my room nearly every day, but because I do not do it as quickly as I think that it can affect my health. So I don't really think that your product is suitable for me. However, I think that you should focus on other people, for example, the janitor who have to clean the whole building, but not only his room or his house, or the companies who have the service to clean the building for example, hospital, company, etc. Because their employee have the health problem with contacting cleaning products every day. So I think that your product maybe interesting product to them.
Thank you, Quang. What about you, Anne? How could we help him come up with an archetype for a customer?
Right. I think one thing that comes to mind immediately, it might assume like a stereotypical gender role in the household, but maybe housewives or moms at home, and they care about their children's health and how Clorox, even though it's super clean, it may be, you know, damaging their children's health. So maybe you can think about targeting that population.
So you have to work on identifying your customer archetype. That's right. So that you find someone that cares. And what she said about, it could be moms with small children. That could be a customer archetype. That could be who you focus on.
That's
Or it could be companies, like Queen said, companies that are into sustainable products. Like a company that they themselves offer sustainable products. They may care about something like that.
Right.
So you don't want to just start with everybody in the world wants, like Quang could say, which he knows this is not true, that every college student wants healthy fast food. No, that's not his customer. You know, I had him flesh it out, and he started talking about low-income students and all these different factors to come up with an archetype. And that's what you have to do. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what I want to ask now, I had you guys do an ecosystem map. And so maybe someone who hasn't presented before, John P., Richard Knipp, or Nui, if you guys have an ecosystem map, it'd be great if you could share it with us. You want to try, John P?
Yeah, I guess I can start.
Okay, can you share your screen?
Yeah, I didn't draw it out as a map, but I wrote
Okay,
it out
that's okay. That's fine.
in terms of the 3 different organizations. So my concept is Samoan language preschool. So I guess for the key organizations, so my community members and some churches and congregations in Hawaii.
Mhm.
For competitors in Hawaii, didn't really find direct competitors for full-time licensed preschools, other than the ones that are already in existence. For example, in Hawaii, we have the Mapunanadeo, the Hawaiian immersion preschools, and more general preschools in Hawaii, like Kikiokaina and Head Start. The Samoan language preschools that are in existence are in New Zealand, and the government requirements and standards that I listed so far are the Hawaii Department of Human Services. So they provide licensing for childcare facilities, and for teachers as well. And then the National Association for the Education of Young Children. So they provide accreditation for the preschools at a national level.
This is really good. And I know I gave you guys 5 minutes, so you'll be able to flesh this more probably after we meet today. But I don't know if you were here last night, and I talked about it's important to have like mentors or experts that you can talk to. So one thing that would be good is for you to say, hey, this is what I think about the ecosystem that I'm trying to talk to a coach or a mentor that I'm trying to enter. Are there other elements of this ecosystem that I missed that I should think of? Because what you may want to do, just like you're interviewing your customers, you may want to interview the stakeholders in this industry to see what is it that they're looking for when they're thinking about the type of product or service that you have. And this government requirements, those standards, that's really important because we talked about like key activities and key resources. So that's like something that maybe you have to have before you even start this business. So the reason that it's important to brainstorm about that ecosystem, because as I said, it's not going to be easy for you to enter it, but you have to make sure that you understand what things do the stakeholders care about and make sure that you are complying with those. So this is a good start. Does anyone else want to present their ecosystem? Okay, Gwen.
Yeah. Yeah, I also have a slide here about the
Okay.
ecosystem.
Okay.
Yeah, as a franchise company, we have the key organizations are the franchisees,
Mhm.
the college, because we would like to have our store in the college,
Okay.
delivery service, package manufacturer, local farmers, because one friend they advised me that by incorporating with local farmers, I can tell people that okay, you buy our products and you also support local business. So and other raw food suppliers. The competitors are other fast food chain like McDonald's, KFC, Safeway, Taco Bell, Domino's, the traditional restaurant, and the instant noodle producers. That's what I got from the inside when I interviewed a student who eat instant noodle nearly every day. And the government requirement are the food safety standard.
That's good. You know, one thing you might want to flesh out, and this is something to think about. You said you want to be in the college, right?
Yes.
What are the requirements for a restaurant to be a part of the college? You need to get an understanding of that.
Yes.
So it may be that as part of your interview. So right now you're interviewing the end user, which is the student, right?
Yes. Yes.
But you're going to need to interview people at the college. So I don't know if there are like people that are in charge of food services or businesses that come in the restaurants. that come on campus, but
Yes.
that type of information is like a must have for you. So you
I
got to
see.
figure out who you need to interview to find out the things you need to do to be on campus,
Yes, I see. Yeah,
right?
it's very helpful. Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I will interview that.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen again. Thank you guys for sharing. So what we've been focused on is problem, solution, fit, desire. Have you identified customers that have certain jobs, certain pains and gains, and designed a value proposition that that addresses those jobs, pains, and gains? I've been focusing on that like a laser with you guys. I've been redundant about it, but this is something that before you do anything else, you have to have problem, solution, fit. Now, product market fit, that's when you have evidence through interviews, not through your guesses, evidence that your product, your solution is a pain reliever, it's a gain creator. And you can get widespread adoption based on looking at the market. Now, business model fit means that you have evidence that your value proposition you can create a business that's profitable and scalable. So a lot of people, they don't know what scalable means. They just say, hey, I want a profitable and scalable business. But I'm going to give you an example. Scalability, it's a spectrum. So I'm going to give you an example of something that's not really scalable and on one hand, and something that is. So this is an example. So what if you had a painting business? And so to paint one house, you have to buy paint and you have to hire painters. If you want to paint 2 houses, you have to buy more paint. Maybe you can use the same painters. But if you want to paint 100 houses, you will for sure have to buy more paint, and you'll also have to hire more painters. So your cost kind of is increasing with your revenue. Like every time you get more revenue, you get more costs. And there's no way around that. But what if your solution was software? And this is on the other extreme. So when you're first developing and designing software, it costs a lot of money, right? You have to hire the engineers to create the code, to create the program. But once you have that software created, you can sell it to one customer. And if you want to sell it to 2 customers, your cost is probably not going to increase that much because you already have the software. Just like if you want to sell it to 100 people, you already have the software. I mean, you're still going to have costs, but they're not going to increase at a really fast rate because you have the product. And so your revenue can increase at a much faster rate than your cost. Now that's 2 extremes of scalability. It's stuff in the middle for sure, because oftentimes, I don't know if you guys have heard, people will say things like, well, hardware is not scalable or something like that. Well, that's not really true, because what if you were selling a device like in volume, like you're selling a lot of a particular device? Maybe you can go to your supplier and you could get discounts on the components so that you can have a situation where your revenue is still growing at a faster rate than your cost. When you're thinking about your business and you're thinking about, is it a scalable business? You want to think about, how can I have a revenue that grows at a much faster rate than my cost? And so that's what it means to have a scalable business. When you're talking, if you're ever talking to an investor, either an angel investor, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this, or a VC, what they're always looking for is ROI, rate of return. But really, is your business scalable? Is your revenue going to grow at a faster rate than your cost? So you need to think about that. So here we are, you guys. I've gone through the business model canvas with you. And I want you to think about your business. Have you found problem, solution, fit? Have you found product market fit? Who are your customers? How do you reach them? How do they want to be reached? Can you make money and grow the company? Can you answer these questions? Who influences my decision maker? How do they discover new products? Can you answer these questions? What are my greatest costs for acquiring a customer? If you can't answer these questions, you need to do a lot more interviews. Look at your ecosystem. We talked about the ecosystem. Decide who you need to interview. You want to keep asking and keep listening. Now I want to talk to you a little bit more about costs. So last night, we talked about key activities and key resources. These are the source of your costs. When you're thinking about what are my costs, go back and look at the key activities and key resources, because that's what you have to spend money on. Now, cost certainly depends on what stage you're in. And the stage determines what the costs are and how often they occur. So right now where you are, if you're a startup, you shouldn't have any costs. You don't no cost, because what you should be doing is you are in search mode. Your mind is focused on interviewing and customer validation. But once you have product market fit, once you know that your solution addresses an unmet urgent need, that it creates customer value and you can get widespread adoption, then and only then do you begin spending money. So there's startup costs, which may be like research and design, prototype development. But basically there's two types of costs. There's fixed costs and variable costs. Now, the key here is not to guess. You don't want to make up costs. You want to do research and get accurate numbers about costs. You need to do everything you can to calculate those costs and compare them to your revenue stream. So as a startup, where you guys are now, once you've done your interviews, right? I just want to keep pushing that. Once you've done your interviews, you may start off with revenue below cost, and many startups do. And this is why startups go find investors. This is why startups try to get grants. This is why startups try to win competition, because they need money. Investors understand that risk. So you may not be making money for some time. And an investor will say, hey, I understand that, but I'll give you my money and I want a return on my investment in the future. So this doesn't mean that you go after the biggest market, like anybody that wants to clean. Doesn't mean you do that. What it means is that you find the market that has a problem that you can solve. This is really important. And this is why I keep talking about customer archetype, fleshing it out, getting as detailed as you can. Find that market that has a problem that you can solve, even if it means that to start, your costs are higher than your revenue. This is what some people call like a beachhead market, because it's that first market, and it might not be the most lucrative market, but it's the one that's willing to pay for a solution to solve the problem. You can start there, you can survive there, but you may need investors to help you. So I've spent the bulk of our time from the beginning talking about desire, because without desire, you don't have a business, and we talked about that. But even if you have desire, you don't necessarily have a business unless it's feasible. And feasibility has to do with, the key activities and key resources that have to be in place for you to have a business. And then the next thing is it viable? Can you make enough money to cover your costs? Not just cover your costs, but make a profit. And so what we're going to do in a minute, I'm going to have you guys fill out the business model canvas. And I just want to remind you about each of the blocks. So we talked about the value proposition. Who is your customer? What's their problem? Can you solve it? Getting an understanding of their persona, their archetypes. Is your solution a painkiller? Or is it just a vitamin? They don't really care. We talked about customer relationships. How will you get, keep, and grow customers? Channels. How do your customers want to purchase products? Do they do it online? Do they go to the brick and mortar? How do they do this? What activities are involved? And this is feasibility again. What resources, physical, financial? Do you need intellectual property like patents, copyrights, trademarks, human resources? What do you need? For partners, do they have resources that you need? Are they better at some key activity than you are? What are you getting from them or giving to them? Costs. As I said, the cost, you need to look at your key activities, key resources, and that's how you come up with your costs. And this is important because unless you have this, it's just a passion project. It's not a business. How will you make a profit? So, we're coming down to the wire here, and I want you guys to fill out this business model canvas. When you're filling it out, when you're looking at value proposition, remember the value proposition is not what you do. The value proposition answers the question, why should anybody care? Here, you want to think about what happens if the problem isn't solved. Think about, like in February, I gave you guys that example, the sleeping bag example. And the value proposition was decreasing the weight of my backpack by 10%. For other solutions, it could be cutting the customer's labor costs by 15%. You want to think about why the customer should care. Most importantly, look back at your interview notes. I had you guys create that chart, which is a really efficient way to put your notes all in one place. But look back at those notes. Use that information to come up with your value proposition. If you have two different customer segments, they may have different value propositions. Find a way on this chart to show a one-to-one relationship, maybe color coding. So as part of this exercise, you're going to fill out the entire canvas. And then I'm going to ask you guys to present. But I want you to spend most of the time on the desire block, because this is the most important. This is where you don't want to have bias. You want to base this as much as you can on facts. So one more note before we get started. I know that part of you guys that are in the competition, you're going to be working on business plans. But remember, in February, at our first meeting, I said, startups need to plan before they draft a business plan. The interviews and the business model canvas is part of that planning, because you can take the facts that you gathered during the interview process, update your business model canvas, use that information, take that information from the canvas and draft it into prose that become your business plan. Instead of having a business plan filled with guesses and hypotheses, you will have a plan filled with facts and insights that you learned from interviewing. So this exercise is an important first step. And I realize I'm gonna give you 10 minutes, and I realize that's like a short amount of time. I encourage you to flesh it out after our meeting today. But don't just draft a business plan. Draft a business plan based on the facts that you gathered during your interviews. So I'm going to give you guys 10 minutes. I want you to do your best to fill out this business model canvas. And what I want you to think about, this business model canvas, it's not a static document. It is dynamic, meaning that every time you get new facts based on interviewing, you update this business model canvas. You should have multiple versions of your business model canvas by the time you do a business plan. Do this before the business plan. Okay, so that's my on a soapbox encouraging you guys. But anyway, I'm gonna give you 10 minutes. And then I'm gonna have, because we have a small group, you guys all can present. So I'm gonna give you 10 minutes. I'm starting now. You guys ready, or you need more time? Ready? Okay. I'm gonna stop my timer. So Kristen, I saw you shaking your head that you're ready.
I think so.
Okay, okay. Can you wanna, so let me just tell you how it's gonna go. I wanted you guys to fill out this whole business model canvas because I know you have to do your business plan. But I'm gonna focus on the customer and the value proposition. You can tell me other stuff, but I really want to make sure that you have that desired part nailed down to the best you can do it. Okay. All right. Ready to share?
Am I sharing my screen?
Yeah, share your screen.
Okay. So our customer segment is one individual autonomous adult language learners who wish to achieve their language learning goals by gaining literacy and communicative skills. And second is language teachers and students at tertiary institutions who wish to incorporate features of the app into existing curricula. And then would you like me to just go to value proposition?
Yeah, so, and let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
Remember I said if you have two customer segments, what you want to do is have like a one-to-one relationship. So do the individual adult language learners, do they have the same value proposition as the teachers?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Sorry, I think we just focused on the first one. We didn't
Okay, that's fine.
get
Yeah,
to the second one.
that's fine.
So this value proposition directly addresses the first one, where we increase productivity and motivation for financially independent adult language learners by delivering a holistic language learning experience tailored towards achieving their desired fluency and proficiency in modern settings.
So let me ask you a question. With the value proposition, one of the things I'm usually encouraging people to do is come up with a measurable value proposition. So how would you know if that happened, if you achieved that?
And do you know, or do you have an idea?
I think without enough data, it's hard to say, but
okay. So all that means is you need to do like maybe more interviews, maybe even talk to some of the teachers to find out how they measure success with respect to the language. And then you could get some metrics, and there might be hypotheses based on that. Okay.
Thank you.
It may be, and I don't know, I'm making this up. It may be that you increase proficiency. Maybe you do it quicker than the other stuff that's out there because you're lining up, like you said, people at the same level to talk and all of that. So maybe it's you're decreasing the time. I don't know. I'm making it up. The time it takes to become fluent. I don't know, but something like that. In like, why would someone choose you over someone else? You know, I mean, it's hundreds of language solutions out there. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely fluency measures that are that are commonly used in research, like words per minute or by second, that we could include in calculations to show learners how their fluency is improving. And then for proficiency, what we could do is look at what are the proficiency standards that we already have in the field, so that learners can also equate that to like other uses that they would like to apply for. Like if they want to put on their CV, like I am like maybe a C for A1, so very basic, they could use that.
Right. So then that would be, your value proposition would be related to that, to be
Mhm.
related to what they care about, right? Because I'm always like, who cares? You
Mhm.
know, what happens if their problem isn't solved? So this is a good start. What else? Tell me something else that for you is an important thing on this chart.
I think for us,
Mhm.
I think we are concerned about key resources because we're not familiar with all the different key resources in our field.
Okay.
And so to us, that's one of the important things we would like to focus on and learn more about as well, in addition to the customer segments, making sure we have the customer and value proposition.
Okay. And so with the key resources and key activities, I said, I think you guys are in the competition, right?
Mhm.
So this is the part that you want to share with your coach or your mentor, your expert, to say, hey, have we thought of everything? And just to make sure that you're in line with your particular industry.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing this.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to share their business model canvas?
Yes, I can share my business model canvas.
Okay.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes, it's loading.
Yeah.
I don't see the chart yet. It says you started screen sharing, but I don't see the chart. Yes, I see it now.
Okay. Yeah, the key partners are the franchisees, college.
So I like how you're working on your customer segment there with the low income, busy, do not want to cook. So you're working on that. That's good.
Yeah. Hello, can you listen to me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, but yeah, maybe there's something wrong with,
Okay, that's okay. That's okay.
yeah. But okay, I can tell you that yeah, my key partners are the franchisees, the college, deliveries, services, local farmers, package companies, and my key activities are sell healthy fast food, franchising, merchandising. Let me try to say it again.
What are your are you trying to share again? Okay.
Yeah.
I can see it now, Quang.
Yeah. So
No, this is good. I can see it. So
there is a,
yeah, I can see it. And what I was saying is I like how you've worked on your customer segment. So that's good. Okay. I want to ask, does anyone else, John P., do you have a business model canvas?
It's not fully finished, but
That's okay. So that's so I know I gave you guys, I know I gave you guys like a short time, but my point in doing this and having you fill out this canvas right here with me is that you use this to draft your business plan. And that right now your canvas may consist of a combination of facts and hypotheses. And what you want to do is keep doing those interviews so that you can fill the canvas with facts. And my point is that it's dynamic. Like, so this is maybe your first one, your first business model canvas. So after today, maybe you'll do some more interviews and you'll have a second business model canvas, and you'll have a third and fourth, and you'll keep doing it until you validate your hypotheses about your customer. You validate your hypotheses about your value proposition, about customer relationships, about key resources and partnerships. And then once you have that, then you draft the business plan. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. Thank you guys for sharing your screen. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about
Denise,
yes.
can you tell me that what your question was about? Because I missed that when I get disconnected.
Can I send you what?
Yeah, you have a question for my business model canvas.
Oh yeah. Yes. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about financials, because this should be a part of your business plan when you're thinking about it. So when you're seeking funding, there's certain metrics that matter. And at this stage, as I said, you really shouldn't be spending any money. So you might be thinking about, I'm going to do this whole diatribe on financial documents, but I just want to mention them quickly. So the financial documents that you want to think about, you don't have to think about them right now, but once you start your business, is there's something called profit and loss statement. And really what this is a document that records the revenue in, the expenses out during a month, a quarter, or a year. And then there's a balance sheet, and that's where you record your assets, what you own, and your liabilities, what you owe on a specific date. And then there's a statement of cash flows, and this is just cash in and cash out during a month, quarter, or a year. So these are important documents, and you do need to have familiarity with the money coming in and coming out. But I'm not going to focus on that type of accounting today. I just wanted to make sure that if you start a business, these are documents that you need to be familiar with. If you're thinking about getting money from an angel investor or a venture capitalist, they look at really 6 key metrics. And one is like cash on hand or money in the bank. They look at how many products you sold or how many customers you have. So the number of contracts, the number of widgets you sold, revenue per unit, that's pretty straightforward. Gross margin, that's just the profit you're making on an incremental basis on all your products. The number of employees you have. Customer acquisition costs, we talked a little bit about that. And I said founders get hung up on this number because they underestimate all the costs that go into bringing in a customer. If it's more than your revenue, you're losing money. So with respect to these metrics, if you're thinking about trying to get money from an investor, you and your founders, you guys, your team need to agree on what the metrics are that they care about. What are the things that you're going to be judged by month to month, quarter to quarter? So, I'm going to focus on cash, because that's a really big deal. So cash metrics that matter. Of these metrics, we're going to focus, number one, as I said, every startup should be focused on this when you're starting a business, because you have no revenue. So you have to keep track of how much you're spending. And so the first thing is your burn rate. You want to know your burn rate per month, and you want to know how long you can spend at that rate. So for example, say you have $100,000 and your burn rate was $10,000 per month. That would mean your runway is 10 months, because you're going to run out of money. 10 months, you're going to need more cash. So obviously, if your burn rate is $20,000 per month, you're going to run out of money in 5 months, and that's pretty fast. So it's really important to understand your burn rate and your runway. Another metric you want to think about is cash to each major milestone. One thing that's really important is if you're working with an investor, you're going to have milestones. So you have to think, do I have enough money to take me to my first major launch? Do I have enough money to take me to my first sale? Investors are going to be looking for you to hit those milestones. You want to think about how much cash to cash flow break even. This is where you go from spending cash every month to making cash every month. And this is what we call cash flow break even. So cash to exit. This is another thing to agree on with your founders or with your investors, is the cash to exit. Is your business heading toward a sale or IPO? And how much cash is it going to take for you to get there? And these are how companies, this is how you plan for a seed round with a venture capitalist. You need to look at and identify which metrics matter. One of the big things, and I'm focusing on this, is how do your customers find out about solutions to their problems? When we talk, do they attend conferences? Do they look online? Do they read magazines? If you have product market fit down, you need to understand, how do I get customers? How do I bring them in? And what are all the costs associated with bringing in a customer? So if you're a B2C, it might be advertising, promotional, marketing, all that costs money. Same thing with the B2B, and all these costs, they add up. I mean, you have to do marketing to generate leads and sales. You may have to spend money on, distribution. So this is something to think about, customer acquisition costs. So I want to do a little exercise with you guys to, okay. So this will help you think about how much you have to sell or how many customers you have to get to break even. So let's just take an example. So Kristen and Ann, everybody jump in. Tell me some of your costs for your business.
We have to pay somebody to do the software development and interface. And I guess platform hosting.
And applying for intellectual property and consultant fees.
Okay. What else?
Marketing. When it's
Marketing.
yeah.
Right. That's a big one, right?
We would have to pay curriculum developers, so people who are going to make the lessons.
Okay, so I'm going to put that there. So let's say that your costs are $100,000 per year. And I'm making this up so we can have some easy numbers. Let's say that you charge $10 for, every time someone uses a service. So if you're going to break even and your costs are $100,000 per year, how many customers do you need to have per year?
10,000. Oh, wait. 10,000.
Yeah. 10,000 customers per year to break even.
Mhm.
How many you need per month?
About 834.
Right? How many do you need per day? If you assume it's 30 days in a month.
Oh, maybe about 26 or 27 people.
Okay. This is how you kind of like break it down. You're thinking, okay, we're just brainstorming about costs here.
Mhm.
This is just an estimate, right?
Mhm.
That's a minimum of what you would need. We're not talking about profit. We're talking about just the break even. And this is a way to do that. This is just a back of the hand envelope, but it gives you an understanding of, okay, I want to do this business, right? What's my market? You've totally come up with your archetype. What's my market? Can I get 10,000? I mean, you maybe can, I don't know, but you have to think about like, what would I need to do to meet these numbers? And this is really like what we call level setting, right? a way to think about your business. So I always like to do this because, as I said, founders, they don't think about finances. They don't think about customer acquisition. They don't think about what it really means to break even. And that's not even where we want to go, but that's like the floor. So I wanted to do that quick exercise with you guys. Let me see here. So key questions when you're thinking about, I want to start a company. Key questions. Big one. Have you found problem solution fit? Have you found product market fit? And then you want to think about, what will customers, will they pay? Is it scalable? Is it profitable? Remember, I talked about looking at your customer, looking at their workflow, looking at a day in the life. Where do you fit in that? What are you replacing? What's your value proposition? And you want to be able to think about, who is your customer? Can you create that chart around users, buyers, influencers? Can you look at that ecosystem? And where do you fit? How do you break in? So that's it, you guys. That is the business model canvas, the lean startup. And now, you should have tools to interview, to come up with a value proposition. This process is really wash, rinse, and repeat, right? If you have this particular idea solution right now, if 5 years down the line, you have another business that you want to start, you should be able to use this business model canvas process. So this is my last time with you guys. I've enjoyed it. Do you have any questions about anything that we've talked about over the last 4 sessions. I know we kind of jumped around a lot today, but I just wanted to make sure we touched on all the different topics that could help you guys with your business plan. If you don't have any questions, that's it for me. I don't know if Pace, if you guys have any announcements.
Thanks so much, Denise. I've heard several instructors, go around the BNC and instruct the lean startup method. And I really appreciate the way you deliver the content and go through the exercises. I think it's super valuable to just have the time to share and give feedback. So thank you so much.
Thanks, you guys. It was so great. Thanks for all your hard work and good luck. Let me know how it goes.
Be well. Aloha.
Thank you
Take
very
care.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.